Sonic X Shadow Generations is a game that I initially had some pre-release criticism for. The game was revealed, it gave me Sonic Forces vibes with how it looked and with a little bit of the level design that was shown. I didn't necessarily say it would be like Sonic Forces, but if I'm honest, that's just how the game came off to me. But after playing the game and even replaying the levels multiple times, was the game that bad? Did it remind me of Sonic Forces, a game which I am not fond of? And the answer to this is a big fat no. This game is exactly what the franchise needed. Now with that said, that doesn't mean I regret saying that in the beginning about this game. I'm always going to be honest about how I feel in the moment or at that time. But I was more than happy to be wrong. And I was wrong honestly long before the game even came out. When we saw more and more of the game, it proved to me otherwise that this game might be something else. But actually getting to sit there and play it pushed that feeling to another level for me. But did that level it got pushed to meet my expectations? And yes, it simply passed my expectations actually. And not just because I had low expectations in the beginning when I thought it looked unappealing, but because it genuinely was an insanely fun experience and a testament to what Sonic Team and Sega can achieve when they listen to fan feedback and focus on delivering a high quality product. The inclusion of Doom powers in Shadow Generations completely transforms the gameplay that we know and love, offering a fresh experience distinct from previous boost mechanics we've grown accustomed to. The level design in Shadow Generations is also particularly impressive for what they're trying to achieve here. Each stage is meticulously crafted, offering multiple pathways, hidden secrets that reward exploration, and this has definitely been missing heavily from boost games for a while. Sonic Forces to me was an unimaginative straight line in terms of level design. Don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with linearity because SA2 is linear. I have a problem with doing nothing at all with that linearity, and that's what separates the difference. Sonic Forces was an attraction ride. Shadow Generations was an experience. In this game, they leave the attraction ride aspect to the visual flair of the game, cutscenes, and Shadow just being cool and raw during the levels. Balance between high speed sections and more platforming focused areas is well executed, and honestly it almost reminds me of a blend of Sonic Adventure and boost games. Visually speaking, this game is a treat. The updated animation style they're going for is just so top notch in terms of polish and quality for Sonic. However, there are some things I feel that need some tuning. For example, Shadow's homing attack is a leftover from Frontiers as he teleports and it looks just a little stiff, and honestly I'm just not a fan of Shadow's flying animation when he boosts. I prefer if he just skated faster. That one's more of just a personal preference here and not an issue with the animation. But with that said, something that needs to be brought up is the animations in the levels and boss fights. These go insanely hard with how the world bends around like Doctor Strange or Inception during a stage transition. Boss animations are also something I just love so much. Some of them honestly put Frontiers to shame in terms of pure animation quality and just coolness to me. But hands down, I think my favorite thing about this game visually is actually the art direction for the menus. I don't know who snapped on these menus, but I'm gonna hunt you down and give you $10 billion when I have it, because this is some of the best menus I think I've ever seen in a Sonic game. They're so clean and they almost remind me of Persona in some ways with their menu design philosophy. Small details are impressive when you're picking a stage. Shadow's just there and you can switch between Doom Wings, no Doom Wings, and Shadow just has a different waiting animation for you to start the level. There's just so much about this that's really nice. And that's not even mentioning things like the boost bar animation, loading screen, and menus. Almost everything in this game when it comes to HUD design is just insanely well done. Probably going to leave a lasting impression on a lot of people. And I think menus in Sonic games have always been something that's been pretty cool and well designed for a lot of games. Even Sonic Forces had great well designed menus. Also, thank you Sega for making the game go up to 120 FPS on PC. Looks so fluid in motion with these menus and the high frame rates, and it feels very immersive as well just for Sonic games. You can really feel the speed at higher frame rates and there's less input delay, which is always a good thing. But I could gush about the visuals and menus all day, so let's move on to the meat of the game. The most important part that makes or breaks a Sonic game is the gameplay. So how does that hold up here? Does this game just have basic movement, or what I like to call schmovement? And to explain the difference between schmovement and movement simply is, movement is when it checks one or two boxes, and one of those boxes being is when you can use unintended gameplay mechanics to push movement further, or intended techniques that allow for pushing further of the movement throughout the gameplay systems. And usually when you find out how to use Schmovin, it feels like you just unlocked a cap on the game's movement. A great example of this is Super Smash Bros. Melee. That game, people discovered wave dashing, which basically allows you to air dodge into the ground, and it allows you to slide across the ground for better movement. That example is more the unintended kind, but it is still a very good example of Schmovin. But this game does have Schmovin, and we will dive into what allows this Schmovin later when we talk about the Doom powers. But the gameplay flow with the level design, though, I admit doesn't reach the heights of Sonic Unleashed, and I want to make this point here. Yes, this is a boost game, but this is a very fundamentally different game. Best example I can give here is Sonic Generations and Unleashed. Sonic controls more like a car that you're driving. Shadow Generations feels more like a platformer character with the speed and gimmicks. One is not necessarily better than the other, but it is definitely different. I'd say for my personal taste though, I prefer the level of control I have in Shadow Generations compared to Sonic Gens and Sonic Unleashed. But again, I think Unleashed still clears in terms of level design compared to every boost game. Anyways, moving on, let's talk about the returning moves that we have in this game. Obviously, we have the boost, the stomp, double jump, slide, and an improved quick step. Now that last one, you may be wondering, improved quick step, what does that mean? And by that, I mean it feels less gritty like... Wait, no, not that gritty. I mean, it feels a bit smoother, and the animation for quickstep adds to the fuel of that, if I'm honest. And fun fact, you can actually hold the quickstep button in this game and it turns into like a quick slide, and if you hold the button and boost, it actually has a higher top speed than just normally boosting. So speedrunners, go enjoy that to your heart's content. But new gameplay techniques are all in the form of Doom powers. We have Doom Spear, which just enhances Chaos Spear, allows you to lock onto multiple enemies and targets. And then we also have Doom Blast, which at first sounds like it's going to be like Chaos Blast, but really it's different. Basically, if you hold the action button and you just JoJo punch a Black Arms alien, send them up into the air, then you take your time to aim in a direction and then launch, and then Shadow teleports to wherever you just launched them. Best way to describe this is very saucy, if I'm honest. And they built this mechanic to allow you to skip sections, make it the shortcuts, and destroy enemies. It is a very satisfying move, and there's a lot of potential with this ability when you get the chance. Then we have Doom Surf, which is more or less an extension of Shadow's movement, but on water. I think it's pretty decent, but I kind of wish I could boost during it. But it does have a nice little Beyblade attack move, so it's cool, I guess. Now here's the icky one, no pun intended, but Doom Morph. This has to be the most complained about Doom power I've seen from anybody. Basically, to sum it up, it's Splatoon. You turn into a Doom Squid, you surf through the purple goop, which is apparently caused by Mephiles. It has a little swing mechanic, but the problem with it is it's poorly explained in the game, and I'm gonna be 100%, I haven't even fully mastered its control. It's the only one I haven't, but that's mainly for the swinging aspect. And you have to activate this by homing, attacking an orb, or just touching an orb, and it doesn't activate as soon as you go into the goop, sadly. It's a very scripted-ish Doom power, I feel, compared to the others, because it kind of decides when you can use it, which I guess you could say the same for Doom Surf, but that's very different in my opinion, because it's obviously made for being on the water, and it doesn't really feel like it's taking away control from you. But it's not that bad to me personally, despite all of this, and this has mostly helped due to it not overstaying its welcome in this game. It only has relevance in a single zone in the whole game, and it's utilized in a boss and then the final boss, which you use all Doom powers in the final boss, so it isn't like it's overtaking anything else. It's just very odd controlling, and I don't even really know how to put it into words, if I'm honest. There is one more Doom power that I am omitting on purpose, but it will be brought up later when we discuss more important aspects like the level design. There's also another power I haven't talked about yet, which I'm also excited to talk about. Shadow Generations opted to have good levels that aren't blocky designs. Thank God. I won't say these levels are some of the best levels of all time, but overall I think I enjoyed every single zone. My least favorite zone is probably Sunset Heights. And I might get flamed for that opinion because it's the Forces stage and people are going to claim that it's biased against it. But honestly speaking, that first act really had the least amount of things going on for me, and at least for my specific taste, but it wasn't bad by any means. But one cool thing I really liked about that level is when the Death Egg robot is throwing rocks, you can use chaos control to freeze those rocks and homing attack up to a path. That part was very cool to me. But I'll say this, my favorite zone by far is Radical Highway. That zone is really rewarding to play, especially with no Doom Wings. Something I also want to bring up is some of these 2D levels may actually be better than some of the 3D ones to me, at least it was on first playthrough. For example, Kingdom Valley Act 2 and Sunset Heights Act 2 are really great stages. They almost remind me of Sonic Rush. And then there's the challenge levels, which all of them are mandatory and they get very creative and still offer 2D and 3D level design. I think these work better here than Gens, because almost all of them have new level design that offer really creative and cool challenges, and I think Generations just has a lot of duds for challenges that aren't really that special. But for Shadow Gens, for example, there's one where you have to get through as many air rings as possible, but they lay it out in a really smart way, and you have to kind of strategically pick which air rings to go through so it can unlock even more air rings to go through. They also have one ring challenges, ring collection challenges, chaos control mastery, and more. It's also worth noting that these boss levels are nothing short of a spectacle and are pretty fun to play. They don't expect too much of you, at least the non-hard mode versions, and just remain simply cool and fun. But I think Metal Overlord is probably the most fun boss and the one that actually didn't S rank first time. But speaking of how I mentioned chaos control earlier, I also admitted that from the powers talk because this mechanic is very integral to the level design. Some levels are literally built in mind for you to use chaos control and be able to stop things in a really cool way. For example, stopping the trains in Rail Canyon, or stopping the robots that are zooming on the rails that blow up the rails. And instead, you can go and take that rail before time unfreezes, and that can lead to a quicker pathway. There are a few creative uses of chaos control, and it feels almost so freeform. I think it's one of the best mechanics that they have implemented into this game. It just really makes the game flow even more, despite the irony of it making time stop. But harkening back to my favorite zone, Radical Highway, this zone offers double 3D levels for some reason, and they're both so good in their design. I don't think I've ever said, yo, I can skip this so many times in a Sonic game, at least not since Gens and Unleashed. Multiple pathways in this level are really well thought out. Some are just legit hidden, some are reaction based, and some are simply just taking a different direction for a faster route. And it's amazing to see this kind of design in a Sonic game again. It does truly make the levels replayable, just like how Doom Wings do, which are something you unlock towards the end of the game. And playing with Doom Wings, you have to get a stage ranking separately when using those. And I went ahead and double S ranked every level, the versions without the Doom Wings and the version with the Doom Wings. Both offered a very different experience and added more layers to this game. Radical Highway, especially Act 2, is very different with Doom Wings and without Doom Wings. I'd say it's actually a quite difficult level, and the S rank for it is pretty tight if you aren't playing with Doom Wings. And for this, it feels like you have to take different pathways and rack up things for the seemingly hidden score. It's been a decent amount of time perfecting my gameplay just for this level. What really adds to all of this and wanting to perfect the mechanics is the unintended mechanics. I mentioned one earlier, which is the quick step slide, which allows you to go even faster, but the other one that is a huge deal right now is using Chaos Spear in the air. For some reason, after a boost into the air, or any moment you fly into the air when you have control of Shadow, throwing a Chaos Spear or 3 extends your air mobility, allowing you to move further. It's a really interesting way of using unintended mechanics. I'd say playing this way is so integral now that since I'm playing on PC, I even changed my controls to make Chaos Spear go from the triangle button to my right trigger just to make it feel more natural. But now I feel like I have to do this technique to push my gameplay further, and it's actually pretty satisfying to do. And this right here is a perfect example of Schmovin. You're using a game mechanic that was probably unintended to allow you to move further and push the movement further. Speaking of game enhancement, wrapping back to the Doom Wings, they essentially function like a super form but less overpowered, and the levels in the games are actually designed with it in mind. And some of the platforming becomes pretty easy to skip, but at the same time, there's also a lot of things in these levels that are made in mind just for the Doom Wings, like air rings that you could probably only reach with having those things on. but it's really fun to use them, and it added a ton of replay value for levels that I didn't even have them for. And again, vice versa for Radical Highway. No Doom Wings on that stage is honestly really hard and challenging. Overall, I think these levels flow pretty well, and I'd put some of these levels over my least favorite levels in Generations easily. Nothing is quite on par again with Unleashed. Sorry to bring that up again, but it's true. Maybe except Arid Sands. I just don't enjoy that one even after S ranking it many times. But yes, this game is very easy replayable because of these techniques, and there's so many reasons to replay these levels, such as even getting the collectibles, which are kind of similar to the Sun and Moon medals in Unleashed a little bit, as they help you unlock the chests in white space, which gives you things. You thought I was gonna forget about white space. Nope, I certainly did not. I will admit though, white space did blow me away more in the beginning compared to the end. I definitely enjoy hub worlds like this, where it still feels like you're playing the game and gives you fun challenges to do while in the hub world, but it was definitely 100% a step up from Generations hub world. I enjoyed collecting a lot of the chests in the world, doing the time challenges, using the Doom powers, and exploring some of those building structures. That was pretty fun. It's a very nice hub world, but I'd say it's probably one of the best hub worlds in all of Sonic games, and mostly in terms of the things to do. But I think Sonic Adventure 1 still holds the best one, even if its functionality isn't on the same level, but the charm and personality make up for that tenfold. White space is trying to serve a purpose here in Generations story, so I'm not blaming it for not being like Sonic Adventure 1's in terms of look and locations, but all in all, it's a very fun hub world. But I think once I hit Chaos Island, the wow factor kind of went away from the hub world, and I felt less pressed to do things in it. And it's not for any horrible reason, it's just good and serves its purpose. And I will probably 100% everything there is to do in it pretty soon, but I do very much enjoy how the hub world brings in characters like Big, Gerald, Maria, Rouge, and even Orbot and Cubot. We also need to discuss the story here, and I won't go too in-depth on this topic, as I believe the story, while a lot better than Generations, it still isn't a huge focus of this game, and especially compared to everything else we discussed. I think there's only about 24 cutscenes in the game total, and they're not necessarily all plot progression. Some of them are just Shadow getting new abilities. It's cool and serves its purpose, but I love how Black Doom is integrated into the story, and same for Maria and Gerald. One thing I will say, without spoilers, is the ending actually did make me feel something. And I'm not talking like emotionally wrecked or anything, but it was just like, oh wow, you know, a surprising moment in this story. You know, it was telling something that was actually kind of emotional and makes sense. And I honestly just thought it was great. And of course, there's also really cool moments that obviously tie into Sonic Generations, and which I appreciated that a lot. And the level of animation quality for these cutscenes is top notch for these Sonic games, and I don't ever want to see this lost. Frontiers 2, please have these animators. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the simple and sweet story, and what it does really well is just make Shadow look super cool at pretty much every time he's on screen. And this is the kind of sauce that I've missed for a long time, and there's even new sauce that we've never seen before, and honestly, I just overall loved the story. One of the last things I'm going to discuss here is hard mode, and these hard mode challenges that get unlocked after you complete the game are insane. When you interact with the Doom Sphere when you spawn into the game, it makes the world all red again and allows for the hard mode challenges levels to be played. It also allows for hard mode versions of bosses. I have to say this, the level of effort they put into these is highly impressive. Some of these levels feel like the Sonic Unleashed Challenge DLC. Maybe not going as far as that, but some of these were pretty hard and provided a substantial challenge. I'm very happy to see something like this existing in this game, and I almost wish they went one step further and made hard versions of all the main levels and harder S ranks, but hey, I can only dream. Now on the boss sides of things, I was really impressed how hard these were. For example, on BioLizard's boss, you actually don't have any rings at the start of it. I think you can only gain rings when you do chaos control and attack the boss. And the windows feel like they're a lot tighter, and they definitely take a lot less damage. Metal Overlord is the one that is the hardest to S rank, as it requires you to proc his phase 2 basically before he does his tail swipe attack to actually make it in time for the S rank. And it requires keen strategy of choosing when to launch debris in the water at the boss and when to use the attack windows. Mephiles is also a lot harder, because you have no rings in that boss fight, and when you have to go climb up to attack him in his phase attack, it feels like he's a lot higher up, and you have to be better at using the Doom morph to be able to get to him, which I did struggle with because I'm still not the greatest with that yet, but I will be eventually. It feels like he's a lot higher in the air, and you have to use the Doom morph a lot better to get to him. I think the hard mode challenge really changed how I approached every challenge level, which, by the way, just have some new level design and don't even feel like I've even played an easier version. I'm really proud of Sonic Team of adding things like this back into Sonic, and hopefully we get a free update that does this for the main levels, because I would really love that. So by the end of it all, Shadow Generations being part of Sonic X Shadow Generations collection is honestly a blessing. You get 2 crazy games in one package, and I love that so much. But Shadow Generations, this game surprised me so much, surpassed my expectations, and I truly believe Sonic Team is on to something. They did quickly turn me into a believer during release of this game, and again, that is something I don't regret. The feeling of change for the better is one of the best feelings of all time, and seeing how they've done everything almost right, it doesn't just have me hopeful for the future, it has me now expecting every game to be just as quality and polished as this one. The more and more I played of this game, the more I did post-game challenges, challenge modes, S-ranking every level, and just getting faster times. I can easily say I love Shadow Generations. This game has been a true pleasure to play, and it doesn't have a lot of shortcomings. All I can see is just Sega pushing this further. And I expect this with confidence now that they have the talent to do this. And they did do this. Sonic Team, you cooked. And this will be an odd score that I'm about to give this game, but I'm going to give this game an 8.7. Not quite the 9, because I know they can go even further than this. I'll click that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.